Let's slow things down
Okay,
by
well, I wasn't
getting right to
sure
the
if-
vote. And then not really discussing our.
Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Somebody,
We're not gonna go along with it. A clean kill is better than dragging it out.
Due to my kids just being like, it's because I said so.
I don't know how to do that.
Out there's America, but in here, it's a dictatorship.
It's
You
so,
could do emotion. It's
called just in my head.
Or you could do the opposite. I move to. It either goes positive or negative.
no pressure. Somebody said today,
I mean, I hope there's
there have been more issues since you've been on council, since there were in the last few years. I mean, they said, are you doing that? And I go, well, I guess. I said, I guess I am.
those people.
Yes, I am.
I'm glad you're here.
Okay, so I thought
That's
there
a
were
fair way
7
to do it.
seats. There's 8 on this list though.
They can always add.
I'll take another seat.
Get yourself as comfortable as you can.
Then
There, get her up. Oh. Yesterday, I was gonna bring a pillow to put under, and I forgot it, so my backpack,
This is gonna be better.
yeah, my backpack works.
Yeah, 'cause that's what I tell people too, when you think about a wheelchair, leave some money for a cushion. You are going to need a cushion.
You know, I had one of those stadium cushions, but it's the giant stopwatch my kids.
Very helpful.
It's the
This is gonna be great though. I like that there's
My
like
wheelchair,
sidewalks
it's better than this.
and an actual
About sitting that
thing
way,
and
because you don't do it.
instead of entryway.
And so all of a sudden now you're stuck in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Sitting there in the butt,
Yeah.
and then that cushion is so nice. How do you have so many ideas? I'm gonna talk to Ann, my sister-in-law, who works at Columbine. I mean, maybe she's reached out to you.
I don't think I've talked to her, but yeah, I'd love to, sit down with her and show her this, because she's got a life experience.
Oh, she's been at Columbine.
Hippie Radio announced it this morning. Yeah, they didn't get the update. That might be it too. Anything that directly affects currents.
Not just whoever's in there.
That's good.
She's good. I'm turning the
But
speakers
yeah, I
on.
mean, I've been around old people, of course, and so I've learned some things from watching them.
Lock the door.
Because I'm just a very curious person.
I think I'll read
And
this.
then this was a huge problem, and then here's what we did to fix it. That sticks.
And it should.
Yeah, right. Thunderdome.
Oh, man, there's a lot of contractors here.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Christie, could you please take roll call?
Sure. Pappenfort,
Yes, here.
Stevens,
Here.
Montana,
Here.
Fratelli,
Present.
Martin. Here. Nacarado. Here. Mayor Shore,
Here.
a quorum is present.
And I'm going to go ahead and read the civility invocation tonight. We, based on the size of the group in this room, we might need it. But we are here working together to create a thriving community. It's the intention of the Salida City Council to promote civil communication by adopting the following guidelines for speaking to the public in the City Council chambers. It is our hope that by acting in this manner, we can help create a safe space for people to share their perspectives and opinions. We honor the opportunity to be engaged in the process of governance for the benefit of our community. We acknowledge that each of us brings a unique perspective to this conversation and that our perspectives may differ. We challenge ourselves to value varying points of view and hold all contributions as equally important. We understand and accept that while we may sometimes disagree, we can always be courteous and kind. We commit to respectful language, avoiding rumor, harsh criticism, or personal accusation, even when feeling emotionally charged. We will, to the best of our ability, speak thoughtfully and listen with attention, respect, and curiosity. We are confident that there may be even better solutions than any of us have thought of, which may be discovered through civil conversations. We affirm our support for women's rights, including equal pay, equal treatment under the law and in the workplace, and the right to determine choices that impact the direction and personal values of one's life, including all individuals' reproductive health choices. We commit to the City of Salida being a hate-free zone and declare and affirm a policy of non-discrimination on the basis of a person's race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, military or veteran status, socioeconomic class, medical condition, or physical or mental disability. And that brings us to the consent agenda. Any questions or thoughts regarding that this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I move to combine and approve the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Critelli, seconded by Councilmember Nacarado. And the motion is to combine and approve the items on the consent agenda. Further discussion?
Stevens?
Yes.
Casper? Oh, sorry. Martin?
Yes.
Fratelli?
Yes.
Nacarado?
Yes.
Montana?
Yes.
Papenfort?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and that will bring us to citizen comment. And there are a lot of people that are here to speak, whether it's in citizen comment or on one of these special hearings. You will have 3 minutes. I'm going to hold everyone strictly to that 3 minutes. When your 3 minutes is up, I will thank you. If anyone feels like they need more time, please reach out to me after the meeting. My information's on the city website. I'm more than happy to spend time with you after the meeting. And the other thing I want to make clear up front is that I'm only going to take people who sign up to speak on any of these hearings. So if anyone wants to speak in public comment, now is the time to sign up if you haven't already. Do we have any takers before we move on? Okay, very good. Thanks. Thank you. First up, we have, is it Justin Burns?
So, guys, I'm here to speak on the issue between Salida and Poncha and the sewer holdup. My name is Justin Burns. I'm a small contractor here in town. We build small, affordable houses, kind of like the ones that you see in Poncha Meadows. I speak for myself, but I feel a lot of others in the community that make a living on residential construction probably feel the same way. The long stalemate between Salida and Poncha is causing a rise in lot pricing across the board. It's making it difficult for myself and others to get contracts on new homes that house working members of our community. I'm not here to pick a side. I'm not here to say Poncha or say Salida. I'm just simply here to ask for a resolution. If we're going to continue to do business here, myself, my family's going to continue to live here, we have to have homes to build. And we don't specialize in building homes in the county for vacation houses and things like that. We build houses for people that live and work here, and we just want to continue to do that. So just want to ask you guys to please help us come to a resolution.
Thank you, Justin. And then next up, we have Robin, EJ.
My name is Robin Nejim, 531 Two-Wheel Drive, Salida. Thank you so much for your public service and for being here tonight. For the past approximately 24 years, I've had affordable rentals in Salida, and until last June, all of our rentals were 60% AMI or less. In June, I went up to 80% AMI due to the tax increase that we saw in the state. I know that affordable housing is important to you, and clearly it's important to me too. As you learned last night, I have an agreement with the city of Salida regarding a planned development as well as having a minor subdivision. My request tonight is to renegotiate the terms with our city planner and hope that it can be taken to planning and zoning as soon as possible. I would like to make this request because, as I mentioned last night, we cannot get the numbers to work per our agreement. I also continue to hear that we should have negotiated. We did, but a lot of unknown variables took place, and it also felt like we were getting dinged for creating more lots in city limits. It didn't feel good. We needed access to our back 2 lots, and you needed money for affordable housing. Again, it cost nearly $350,000 to create 4 lots in city limits. To have to pay a fee in lieu on top of that is a burden to everybody in this development, and it doesn't help with the affordable housing crisis whatsoever. Many people have walked away from this simply because of that fee. Teachers, doctors, old students of mine. I will add that with the Housing Authority proposed sales tax increase, should it pass, we would not only be giving to affordable housing through our low-income rentals and also the fee in lieu of, but also through our sales tax. My question is, when is enough enough? We can only do so much. I cannot keep up with these rates and these increases. I hope we can come up with a compromise in the future. I appreciate and value the concept, and I mean no disrespect to our city planner or his assistant. They were just doing their job and trying to keep things fair. But as you know, this is not a one-size-fits-all situation, and this is actually hurting the ability for year-round local people to live on our property. Oh, and if you throw in a moratorium on building, that'll be really fun to try to sell that lot. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Robin. Next up, Aaron Cook.
Hi, my name is Aaron Cook. I'm born and raised in Colorado, and I moved to Salida for a job a few years ago. I know what it's like to be priced out of my own hometown. I graduated high school in 2008 and didn't come back to Colorado until 2019. I rented for a few years up on the Mesa in Salida, and I actively saved for at least 5 years for my down payment to buy in this area. I finally did, and having 4 kids who are involved in local activities, clubs, school, I'm still working at that job that brought me to Salida in the first place. I'm involved in my church, the local community theater, fencing clubs, and however much I would have loved to have kept my short commute from the Mesa, the place that I could find that I could afford was in Poncha. So I bought an e-bike and I commute away. As part of the cost of building my home, thousands of dollars worth of my years of savings went to the sewer tap fee, representing my portion of my impact on the sewer system. I also cut a check for this system every month as part of my sewer bill. If I want to increase the supply of attainable housing in our community and build an ADU above my garage, I need to pay thousands of dollars more. That's fine. The tap fees are what should pay for the necessary improvements to the system. And there's a transparent and fair way to pay for capital improvements that way. That is, if I could get a tap. However, I don't appreciate the efforts by the city to charge me and my immediate neighbors more after collecting over $5,000 from me and every one of us for our collective impact to the system. I have friends who are living in RVs right now, trying to scrape up enough, just like I was, to buy a house and put the down payment together. Salida says we've been warning Poncha since 2017 about the sewer line issue, and yet Salida has happily accepted my and my neighbor's money in sewer tap fees to pay for infrastructure improvements necessary to serve us. I don't understand how Salida can continue to have their cake and eat it too on this matter. Salida's wastewater enterprise is run by the elected officials of the city of Salida. I don't get to vote for the board running the Salida sewer enterprise because I live in Poncha. But the sewer system is run by the elected officials of the city of Salida. I don't think that's quite right. I think it's time that Salida divests itself of the sewer enterprise altogether and begin running it like the Buena Vista Sanitation District, which has an entirely separate board of directors and representation from all of the people served in the system. At the very least, please abide by the agreement your forebears signed with Poncha, agreeing that the residents of Poncha will be treated no differently than those of Salida. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up, Tracy Vanderveer.
I'm Tracy Vanderveer. I'm with the engineer with the Crabtree Group here in Salida. Here to speak to you about the sewer capacity issue, or the sewer issue between Salida and Poncha. I think there's a lot of misinformation going around. So I'm going to use Salida's Poncha, the study that Salida did on the sewer system, because it plainly states that there is no capacity issue. Right now, in the maximum, the peak flow ever recorded was 53% of the system capacity at that point in time. And then further, if you look in this, this is, I guess Providence did this study in March 18th of 2022. Since that time, you know, there has been there have been no new sewer taps, so the conditions are basically the same as they were back then. In their study, they state that the build out of all known Poncha Springs service area planned developments is 1,848 single-family equivalents. Then a little further down, it's interesting to note that the estimated 1,848 built out single-family equivalents corresponds with the pipeline capacity, so the total capacity of the pipeline, at the controlling segment, assuming a peak factor of 3.34. So you got all the flows in Poncha Springs with a peak capacity of 3.34, you're basically at the design flows of your pipeline. Then later in the study, they were talking about when to start planning. Typically with infrastructure improvements like this, once your system starts getting 80% capacity, you want to be planning for expansion of your system. So they went through all this, and if they assumed 100 single-family equivalents per year of growth, that would be 4.8 to 7 years in the future we have to start planning this. If we go with a more realistic number, me saying more realistic is that's my opinion. They said using a less aggressive growth rate factor of 50 single-family equivalents per year extends that time frame to between 9.5 and 14 years. So, and you know, that's Salida's study. I just wanted to point out that there are no capacity issues, so it should be pretty easy to come to a resolution on this, or at least come up with some solutions to keep things moving forward, because it is a huge negative impact on our community when nobody can find a place to live.
Thank you. Next up, we have Donnie Case.
Hi, my name is Donnie Case. I'm owner of Y&K Excavation, and I am here to talk about the sewer agreements between Poncha and Salida. Brief history, 2022, Y&K Excavation was scheduled to start work on phase 2 of Poncha Meadows. We were informed at that point, the city of Salida would not grant any more sewer agreements due to the trunk line capacity issues between Poncha and Salida. I do have a lot of questions and concerns about that, but specifically I wanted to focus a little bit more about how it affects our business and our community. So when the sewer agreement wasn't issued, it did put a huge strain on our business. Cost me a lot of money not being able to start the project while we tried to secure other work. But that alone isn't the biggest issue that I see not being able to come to resolution. We really need projects like this in our community in order to have a healthy economy. I believe we need housing and we need the jobs that come along with providing that housing. I personally need projects like Poncha Meadows, not only to be successful in my business, but to provide jobs for the 20 or so employees that depend on me for their livelihood. For them to live here and support their families, we need work, and that's one of the ways that we get it. Not only for my employees, but we also have several subcontractors that we hire and their families. So basically, it's just, it puts a lot of strain on everyone that in this community if there's no housing, there's no jobs. So I really urge you guys to see if you can come to a resolution and try to get this thing moving more quickly.
Thanks, Donnie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Adam Martinez.
Yes, I want to thank you guys so much for keeping the streets open. I really appreciate it. And I had put in your guys' packet a petition of the ones that are against it. And I think where I could agree with Dan on is he's been out in the community talking with people on the ones who like it and don't like it, and in essence, find common ground and compromise. And I think I think that the people who don't like it, we have to respect their feelings, and in essence, and do what's best for them as well. You go along downtown, and you, in essence, my mom has her own beauty shop. You have Mark Kavanik, you have Dick Levitt, and I think when they did the survey, I think Justin was wrong in saying 63% of the people were in favor of it, 39% were not in favor of it. I think when you look at my petition, there is more than what Justin says, but I also think, like Suzanne talked about, we have to, we can't just think about businesses. We got to think about people here in the community. And I think for 2025, you're going to have an election year next year. You're going to, in essence, want to push this on through. So let's meet in the middle and figure out what works for everybody, because Dan and I come from two different backgrounds. I was in customer service for 18 years. Dan was in investments, but I think that him and I could agree that there needs to be some meet in the middle and collaboration. And I think, in essence, I would like to work with you guys, in essence, and maybe we could have some town halls and figure out what this community likes, because there's going to be one majority that is not going to like whatever the decision is next year. And I think we need to get to the bottom line and figure out what Susan, but I also think that it should be on the ballot as well going into an election year, because if you take a look at my signatures, I think it should be on the ballot, and you might want to ask Nina what it takes to put it on the ballot, because I know we can do this. Reach out to me. I would more than happy to have a discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Carrie Mesh. You're good? Okay. Chris Tracy.
Hi guys, Chris Tracy. I'm switching restaurant hats today. Today it's Iron Chest and Poncha. So I'm here on the sewer agreement and some of the things that has effects on me. So when we started this project, when I started my project, there wasn't the issue with the sewers going on. And since then, the closure definitely has an effect on how many people are traveling through Poncha Springs, how many of the guys from like Y&K Construction, Dieselin Construction, things like that are just in the area in general, building those houses, as well as the people that are coming in. So we're already over a year deep on this sewer agreement. Its effects are large. It does affect things. It affects sales tax dollars. So kind of same thing. You guys took our sewer tap fees. You take our water and sewer money, but you stop the flow of income coming in with the people that are supposed to be moving into our area in Poncha Springs. It's probably the most logical place for growth, and it's something that we need to get addressed sooner rather than later. Same thing with this moratorium. We can't shut down housing and get our way out of a housing crisis. So with this, we're creating a government kind of induced supply and demand issue in the housing market. Sooner we can get this wrapped up, the better it'll be. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chris. Jim Miller.
Evening, Mayor Shore, City Council, staff, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jim Miller, and I'd like to welcome Suzanne back. It's nice to see you actually here. First of all, let's clear one issue up, okay? There is no such thing as affordable housing unless it's subsidized. It's either subsidized privately or more commonly publicly. It's our tax dollars that make affordable housing affordable. So it's not magic. And let's now go back many decades ago, and the original sewer agreement between Poncha and Salida. Poncha Springs was a wide spot in the road. It was a cross-section, intersection. They could not possibly afford to ever meet state standards for their own sewer treatment. The good citizens of Salida graciously allowed them to join our sewer system, and it's been a good system for a long time. The issue here is not the capacity from our corporate limits, that's corporate limits of Salida, to the sewer plant. We have plenty of capacity. The sewer plant was designed quite well, and it's got room to expand. That's not going to be the issue. The issue has been, for many years, the overall capacity of the trunk line between Poncha Springs and Salida. If it ties into our sewer mains here at our corporate limits, we have plenty of capacity. It's the line between Poncha, the trunk line, that's the problem. And this has been going on. It's been an issue for several years, many decades, actually, several decades. The last sewer agreement tried to address it, but again, nobody can reach an agreement. Poncha Springs wants the citizens of Salida to dig into our pockets and once again subsidize their inadequate trunk line. We don't ask them to subsidize our trunk lines. Our tap fees pay for those things. And we try to utilize good engineering. I don't think anyone's actually at fault as far as the engineering of the trunk line goes. They just never expected to start growing as rapidly as they did. And I think that's the real issue here. So I think that there could be a compromise, but Poncha Springs has got to really man up and realize they have the majority of the financial burden should be on their citizens and on their future growth. And that's a fact. And it should not be on a burden for the taxpayers and the citizens of Salida. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And then Bethany Struthers. Who's going to do the speaking?
Hopefully me. Let me just open my notes here. Okay, so I'm Bethany. I am a landowner at Greenheart Minor Subdivision, and I'm here to discuss the inclusionary housing fee. I'm sure you guys have all heard from my husband on the phone or lots of emails about this issue, and he couldn't be here tonight, so we're here. I would like to ask the council to consider negotiation of the plan development because of the financial burden. My husband and I saved for 6 years to buy that land here in Salida. And that was 6 years of no extra anything, no birthdays, no Christmas, like nothing. That was all our extra money to get here. We want to build our home. We are building our home there to raise our 2 boys here in Salida. He's building our house himself because that's the only way we can afford it. He works from home during the week, and then he spends his off days and weekends out there building. We ourselves qualify for inclusionary housing. So As a family of 4, we make $50,000 a year. When all is said and done, including all the permits, if we do end up having to pay that full inclusionary housing fee, we'll pay $32,000 to the city, which is more than half of our yearly earning, which makes more sense to ask a developer to pay. But this is, this is 4 lots that were purchased by families who are building homes, just for their families. Yeah, so, sorry, I lost my place. Yeah, so I would also like the council to recognize that the owners of the subdivision needed access to their back lots. They also provided 4 lots within city limits that wouldn't have been there. It was nothing but a junkyard prior to this development, so please consider making the right decision and negotiating this fee. Thank you.
Thanks, Bethany. That's all I have signed up. Do we have anyone online? Okay. Then we're going to move on, and next up I have a proclamation to read. And celebrating April 2024 as Arab American Heritage Month. Whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have been making valuable contributions to virtually every aspect of American society, in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, military service, culture, and whereas since migrating to America, individuals of Arab descent have shared their rich culture and traditions with neighbors and friends, while also setting fine examples of model citizens and public servants. And whereas they brought with them to America their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education, and diversity in faith and creed that have added strength to our great democracy. And whereas Arab Americans have also enriched our society by sharing in the entrepreneurial American spirit that makes our nation free and prosperous, and whereas the contributions of Arab Americans in the U.S. often can be neglected or defaced by misconceptions, bigotry, and anti-Arab hate in the forms of crimes and speech, and whereas Arab American issues such as civil rights abuses, harmful stereotyping, and bullying must be combated in the forms of education and awareness, and whereas they join all Americans in the desire to see a peaceful and diverse society where every individual is treated equally and feels safe, and whereas the incredible contribution and heritage of Arab Americans have helped us build a better nation, now therefore the city of Salida does hereby proclaim and declare the month of April as Arab American Heritage Month in Salida, Colorado, and further encourages all Salidans to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And next up, we're moving to new business, and we have a public hearing for a sound permit with Highside. And I will hereby open the public hearing, and I'll turn it over to city staff to summarize their report.
Sure. So we received an amplified noise permit application from Highside Bar and Grill, located at 300 West Sackett, to host a birthday party on April 7th from 4 to 7 p.m. Amplified noise permits are allowed to be approved by the administrator between May 1st and November 1st. Since the proposed date is out of that window, a public hearing is required. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the amplified noise permit for Highside Bar and Grill for April 7th for the hours of 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you. And is the applicant with us this evening?
She's not.
She's not,
She couldn't
okay.
make it.
Okay, then we'll move right on to public comment. Give us one. And before it comes up, is there anyone that wants to speak on this issue who has not signed up? Going, gone, okay. Okay. We have Douglas, is it Peltier? Thanks.
Greetings to you, Mayor, and the City Council and staff and my fellow citizens. My name's Doug Peltier. I live at 540 West Sackett here in Salida. I do not object to the amplified sound permit. I just concerned about the restrictions that might apply to it because I live 6 blocks west of the stage at the park, and sound really carries up and down the river. And High Side is at least 2 blocks closer to me, and it's actually across the street from residences. You know, they are zoned, I'm sure, properly, and everything like that. But I would request that they conform to the same curfew that permits in the park for amplified sound have, in the same season. I think it's from May 1st to October 31st. And because, you know, they do, the sound does disturb the neighborhood to a certain extent. And all I would say is that, you know, if it does, I notice it to be, you know, that much louder than what comes from the park, I probably would voice a complaint, and I'd expect it to be enforced. Okay? Oh, and thanks for the comfortable chairs.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Anyone online?
No.
Okay. So let's see. No applicant here for rebuttal? Anything from city staff?
No.
No? Okay. Does council have any questions on any of this thus far? Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and that will take us to preliminary council discussion. Who would like to begin?
I'll say Joe Stone is a bit of a Salida legend, so, you know, certainly bending the rules for somebody like Joe isn't the worst thing, to put it lightly. It's his birthday.
And I would just say we do have policies and procedures in place, so I don't think it's so much bending.
Right. Of course not. Yeah. I mean, it's also 7 o'clock where normal curfews.
I think 4 to 7 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon is pretty harmless and within those policies and procedures.
Very reasonable.
And I think that High Side does a very good job of sticking to the decibel levels. And so I'm not worried about compliance issues. They do a great job.
I'm going to pull up it's not in the pack.
Oh. Waiting for that pesky
The motion,
resolution.
yeah.
Motion.
I think I have it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve an amplified noise permit for High Side Bar and Grill located at 300 West Sackett Avenue for Joe Stone's birthday party to be held on April 7th, 2024, between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Nacarado, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. And further discussion? And so the motion, can I read that because I don't have it? I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
Page 39.
Oh, thank you. I got all kinds of help tonight. So I move to approve an amplified noise permit for High Side Bar and Grill located at 300 West Sackett Avenue for Joe Stone's birthday party to be held on April 7th, 2024. Further discussion? Okay.
Critelli?
Thanks.
Yes.
Fontana?
Yes.
Pappenfort?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Nacarado?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then next up, we have the Chaffey County Community Foundation grants recommendation. And Betsy, I'm assuming that's you?
I can start you off if you want me
Okay,
to.
sure.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. The City of Salida has a great agreement with the Colorado Chaffey County Community Foundation.
Got an upgrade
Not
there.
all of Colorado, just here.
Your feet have been expanded.
I know. Don't tell her. They administer a donor-advised fund and accept applications from nonprofits in Salida and review those instead of everything coming to the city council. I think it's a great process that we have with Betsy and the foundation. So we put aside 1% of a 3% sales tax annually to go towards that process. And so, yes, Executive Director Betsy Dittmer is here to talk about the process and let you know about the funding recommendations.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here tonight, and also for the great partnership that we have in administering the Community Grants Program. We feel honored to be able to play a role in that and to hopefully provide a service to both the nonprofit community and to the city of Salida in offering a transparent, fair, and well-defined process on how to administer those grants. I want to give a huge thanks to Representative Suzanne Fontana and also to Wales Martin, both who participated in the process this year. And so you both have a little bit of a taste, along with Representative Peppenfort, for how much time and intensity goes into those discussions, and we just appreciate your time and attention to that. I know it is quite a bit that we ask of you as you review, but we also feel it's so important to give every applicant their due process and being considered. Quick summary is we received 46 applications for funding. 2 were determined ineligible. 11 applicants were not recommended for funding. 33 applicants were recommended for funding with an average award side of $4,445. This was a combined between the town of EV and the city of Salida funds. If we look at just the Salida funds, 31 applicants were allocated funding for a total of $90,046, and the average out of the Salida fund was $2,905. 28 applicants were also awarded awards from the town of BV as well. We really appreciate, we've heard this from our nonprofit partners, that we really appreciate that we're able to do one process, so they're just submitting one application as opposed to having those be 2 separate, just to reduce that burden of the application process on the organizations and on the reviewers as well. I'd love to answer any questions that anyone has about the process or how those decisions were made. So, yeah.
Questions for Betsy?
Well, half of us have been involved, so we don't have very many questions.
Well, how's the half involved feel about their time with it and anything?
It was a huge process for me, big learning curve, lots of reading, understanding many things that I didn't even know were around Chaffey County or in the Community Foundation and the city of Salida. So for me, it was a huge learning curve, but it was so wonderful to see how many things there are for people to participate in, to go to be involved in around Chaffey County. So it was just a positive experience for me. It was good.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and though I wasn't involved this year, I will say that it really clues you in to all the nonprofits.
Yes.
Because there are more than you probably think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to echo that in that, I was able to learn about the organizations myself so that I could either pass along the information to somebody if they needed those types of resources from the nonprofits, or also allowing people the opportunity to volunteer with the different nonprofits that are in town, letting them know that we have organizations that exist that gets their heart pumping. And yeah, I really appreciated the process of everything that we went through. Everybody was able to come in and advocate for the ones that they wanted to. And it was very peaceful, I feel, when we weren't always on the same page. And yeah, it was good. Thank you for the opportunity to do it. So
you're welcome.
And I would just say, having experienced what it was like before we were working with the foundation, we went from T-ball to the major league. So I'm really, really grateful for everything you brought to the process.
One thing we do like to share is that we never consider a declination or a decline of a grant as a closed door. We meet with everyone who's declined individually, and we offer them direct feedback. We also are hosting our community summit on April 30th, which will have a grant writing portion as one of the workshops, and so we encourage folks to come to that. In addition, anyone who wants to reach out to us, we will offer feedback on their narrative and give them that individualized support. We really just want folks to be successful in their grant writing, whether it's grant writing to the Community Foundation's processes or to other grants that are out there as well.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
There is a motion, yes. Staff would recommend that the council approve the 2024 Municipal Community Grant Award recommendation, and the motion is available there.
I'll do it. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve an expenditure of $90,000. Is that the one I'm reading right there?
Yes.
Okay, just checking I'm reading the right thing. $90,046 to the Chaffey County Community Foundation to provide funding for the 2024 Municipal Community Grants
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Fontana, seconded by Councilmember Critelli, and the motion is to approve an expenditure of $90,046 to the Chaffey County Community Foundation to provide funding for the 2024 community grant recommendations. Did I get that? Okay. Further discussion? Okay.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Fontana.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
We'll get the check to you.
And thank you very much. And then next up, we have ordinance 2024-05, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, amending the city code to repeal and reenact Chapter 11, Article 6, entitled Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails of the Salida Municipal Code, and amend Section 7-5-220, entitled Animal Nuisances. This is a first reading and setting a second reading and public hearing. Thanks, Diesel.
Yeah, thanks for hearing me out last night, going over all this in a work session. So I got a little bit of a direction from you, and I've come back with a little bit of clarity. Financial implications. So in 2023, we spent $4,511 on 118,000 mutt mitts. So that was in 23 different mutt mitt stations. Just quickly looking at the city and those mutt mitt placements, I imagine we would have to install at least 17 more. And given the same math, that would be about $4,477 on mutt mitts. The materials, the actual stations, and the time and staff to install would probably run around $13,600. And staff time to address dog consequence in parks and fill mutt mitt stations. I imagine it would take one staff member an eighth of their year and their time to do that. So that comes out to about $5,720. So like $24,000 in mutt mitts alone. I also did not have a chance to talk to Russ, but I imagine it would be some law enforcement officers, probably a quarter of their time walking around our city enforcing this, if not half. So whatever salaries and wages we would predict at that, and we can walk that back. Now, what I heard from you guys was that you seem to be on board with most of the recommendations for change to the code. This was perhaps a little sticky and maybe not ready for the conversation. I can certainly bring it back in 6 months, a year, and you guys can listen to the community and see what they say. But with that, after speaking with Erica, one of you could move to amend ordinance 2024-05 to add language that continues to prohibit dogs in Salida parks to section 11670 of the Salida Municipal Code and remove section 3 of the ordinance in its entirety. And then another, obviously, person would have to move to approve the amended ordinance.
Can you repeat that? Because I have a feeling I'm going to have to.
Yep. I
regurgitate
move
that.
to amend ordinance 2024-05 to add language that continues to prohibit dogs in Salida parks.
Okay.
To section 11670
11670.
of the SMC, Salida Municipal Code, and remove section 3 of the code in its entirety. That was the nuisance dog
Okay.
addition.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I think I got it. But more importantly, did other people get that?
I saw her taking notes.
Any questions first for Diesel on this?
I want to say thank you for pulling together all that extra information.
Yeah.
From last
Appreciate
night
that.
to today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know you had other work to do too.
Was fine. Our invoices unfortunately combine trash bags and mutt mitt stations and gloves. So we have a great finance department that itemizes everything. So it was great.
Good.
Okay.
Sorry. Do we have discussion?
Do you have questions or?
Yeah, I have a question. So if we make that amendment, when would that come back to the table, the prohibit dogs, just like whenever we wanted, or?
Or, well,
I don't.
Yeah, you can always, in citizen comment, if it came up in the community, council comment, someone could say, I'd like to hear more. And if someone else, another one of you says that, then that's direction to me to go learn more about it and bring it back to you at a later date. As we talked about in the retreat, like when, do you want it in 6 months? And it can come out in your council comments.
In my sense is, I mean, we haven't been hearing much on this issue, at least I haven't, for quite some time. This might stir or spark a little interest, and maybe that will help us with some direction at some point in the future.
So remind me, we move to approve the ordinance first and then move to amend it?
Yeah, we should.
I think you could do it
we
all.
had-
You have to amend, if you're going to amend the ordinance, you have to make a motion to amend it first. And then if that passes, then there would be a subsequent motion to approve the amended ordinance.
Okay, so we don't have to read.
So do the amendment first.
Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, I move to amend ordinance 2024-05 to add language that continues to prohibit dogs in parks per section 11670 of the Salida Municipal Code and remove section 3.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Nacarado, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. Very good job with getting that all down. And the motion is to amend ordinance 2024-05 to add language to continue to prohibit dogs in parks per section 11-670 of the Salida Municipal Code and remove section 3 in its entirety. Further discussion?
Stevens?
Yes.
Critelli?
Yes.
Nacarado?
Yes.
Fontana?
Yes.
Pappenfort?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. And next up is what I,
You still have to
okay.
vote
on the amendment.
Yeah.
approve the amended ordinance.
Okay.
Or not.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the now amended ordinance of 2024-05 on first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing for April 16th, 2024. Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Critelli, seconded by Councilmember Stevens. The motion is to approve the amended ordinance on first reading and setting a second reading and public hearing, and that will be in 2 weeks. Is that correct? Okay, on April 16th. Okay, further discussion?
Fontana?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Nacarado?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Pappenfort?
Yes.
Critelli?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And next up is what I suspect many of you are here for this evening, and that's ordinance 2024-05, an ordinance of the city, ordinance 2024-06, an emergency ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, imposing a temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of certain land use applications and declaring an emergency. This is a public hearing, and a final reading. I will hereby open the public hearing, and I know that passions are probably pretty strong on this one, and I would just ask that we all try to really be civil in the process and leave people out of it and really stay focused on what our concerns might be. So with that, I'll turn it over to staff and to Bill to present their report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I don't normally do this, but I've prepared a written statement for this one. Staff is respectfully requesting a temporary 6-month moratorium on certain land use application types, not building permits, to begin immediately. The purpose of this request is to allow staff to complete the city's new land use code, anticipated by the end of this summer. The code rewrite process began in late 2019 following Planning Commission and Council's direction, but it has seen numerous delays due to a variety of factors, including the COVID pandemic and associated challenges, record amounts of development applications, building permits, and general development-related inquiries, as well as numerous staffing changes, including the loss of our longtime senior planner, Christy Jefferson, who recently became the city clerk. The land use code rewrite is long overdue and is necessary to bring the code in line with the amount and types of development that we are now seeing,
to ensure orderly development and the efficient use of our water and wastewater systems and roads, and to acknowledge the unique characteristics of different areas of town. And from a purely practical standpoint, it is important to make what is a sometimes confusing and conflicting document much clearer in its purpose and organization, and to streamline some of the current clunky review processes. Full rewrites of the land use code are a monumental task, one of the biggest undertakings of any city, which is exactly why they are done so infrequently by communities. Thousands of staff hours go into updating a code that is hundreds of pages long, not to mention the accompanying administrative manuals, updated application forms, improved online systems, and more. The level of detailed analysis and review required to create a quality land use code document is truly incredible. It is very common for communities, even the norm, to enact a moratorium on development when conducting a land use code rewrite. To quote the Book of Colorado Land Planning and Development Law, such moratoria are adopted, quote, to prevent inappropriate development from occurring between the time the determination is made and the guidelines are established. These temporary moratoria have been upheld when the duration is reasonable and they are enacted in good faith, end quote. Furthermore, a moratorium can help avoid the extremely difficult scenarios of developers, staff, commissioners, and councilors needing to understand and use two totally different land use codes at the exact same time. One for applications that have been submitted prior to the new one going into effect, and one for applications submitted right after such date of effectiveness. To be clear, the 6-month moratorium will have very little effect on overall development within Salida, and absolutely no effect on projects that have already received approvals, are already in the review process, or those that have already had conceptual reviews with Planning Commission and Council. The proposed moratorium has absolutely nothing to do with incoming building permits that are already entitled, nor does it apply to annexations, which are statutorily exempt from such moratoria. As you heard in the work session last night, the unprecedented amount of work that the Community Development Department has been engaged in over the last few years has resulted in approximately 1,200 entitled residential units that are yet to be built within city limits. 1,200. Even with the moratorium, developers would still be able to come in at any point with applications to build those 1,200 units. That is equal to 1/3 of all the existing homes in Salida today. And around 350 of those, or a little over a quarter of them, will be legally restricted at affordable rates. In other words, we may have a housing crisis. We do have a housing crisis. But at this point, it has little to nothing to do with land use approvals with the city. Homes don't get built overnight, and in the end, actual construction comes down to forces outside of the city's control, including developer financing, interest rates, availability of labor, and more. There are enough approved homes to keep local developers busy for literally years to come. We are only talking about a temporary 6-month moratorium on the larger land use applications in order to get the new land use code done. Those application types included in the moratorium are primarily some limited impact and all major impact reviews, the types that take up the majority of staff time and require numerous planning commission and council meetings and the related preparation. We are already approximately 2/3 through the rewrite process, but now is when the hard part really begins. The different pieces that we have been working on over the last 4 years will soon be assembled into a singular document. We will then bring it to the public in a variety of manners and meetings, which may result in revision of various parts, then ultimately bring it forth to Planning Commission and Council for reviews, recommendation, and hopefully approvals. At the same time, we need to create a brand new zoning map that must align with the new zoning districts that have been proposed and already initially reviewed by Planning Commission and this council. You may ask, why make this an emergency ordinance that would go into effect immediately? Well, because if we run this as a typical ordinance, which requires advanced noticing, multiple readings in front of council, and then an additional 30 days before it goes into effect, we would very likely see a flood of applications trying to get theirs in under the wire, which would completely defeat the purpose of trying to focus on the new land use code. That is exactly what we saw when the county recently updated the building and energy codes, which had its advance notice. It is also worth mentioning that when we began this land use rewrite process, we received a grant from the state to help pay for it. Thus far, we have used about 3/4 of that money, but we still have close to $20,000 that we need to expense towards this project between now and June. Though it's not the end of the world if we leave some of that money on the table, we'd like to do everything that we can to use it up in a timely fashion. Otherwise, the remainder will be coming entirely out of the city's budget. Anyone who would say that, well, city staff just needs to work harder and get all this done at the same time, let me say this. When I came aboard 6 years ago, we had 3 people on staff, all fully experienced planners. Over the last 4 years, we have been processing approximately double the amount of land use applications, building permits, and public inquiries on top of other programs, including city-initiated housing projects. Today, my staff consists of just 2 planners, myself and Catherine here, and our planning technician, John. We actually have fewer planners today than we did 4 years ago. And hiring and training in this field takes a significant amount of time before those individuals, or even contract planners, can be brought on board, trained in our existing code and processes, and are able to work independently. We've been busting our butts in this department for a long time now. I can't even count how many nights past 9 p.m. and weekends that I or we have been here in the building working on application reviews, very extensive and continuous staff reports, as most of you are familiar with, presentations, grant applications, and numerous other projects over the last few years. And that doesn't even include the 6 to 7 nights per month on average that we are here for planning commission meetings, city council meetings, HPC meetings, land use advisory committee meetings, public open houses, and the like. It's just not sustainable. We have hired a new planner who will arrive here this June, but as I mentioned, it will be several months before we are close to fully staffed. With that, staff urges City Council to approve Ordinance 2024-06 as it states, to best protect and promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the present and future inhabitants of the city, and to guide future growth, development, and distribution of land uses within the city, and to issue a temporary moratorium as necessary on the acceptance of land use applications while engaging in a comprehensive rewrite of its land use code. Thank you.
Questions for Bill?
This might be more of a question for the lawyer. I'm wondering if we're statutorily required to process those kind of land use applications within a certain time frame when they do come in.
The annexations are statutorily required within a certain time frame.
Right.
The rest of the land use applications don't have a time frame other than that which we have in our own land use code. And that is specific to deeming applications complete within 7 days of receipt of those applications. Other than that, it's sort of at an at-will basis.
So is there a way to slow down the process instead of issuing the moratorium and, you know, coming to a stop with some of these? Is there a way you can accept them and say, we are going to process this, but it's going to take this amount of time, or something like that, so that it's not stopped?
There's always a give, and the question is, what gives, right? Is it the land use code update process? Is it the affordable housing that the city is involved in trying to build right now? Is it any number of other processes that we're currently involved in? Yeah, I mean, there's only so much capacity. And if we're going to allow applications to continue, we have to allow all applications to continue of that particular type. This moratorium is specific to the much higher level applications, the ones
20
that,
or more, like a development with 20 or more homes is what I was reading.
that would be one of them.
That would be one
Major
of them.
subdivisions, anything more than 6 lots.
So that's like 3 affordable housing units that would not be approved at the same time if it were 20.
Yeah, if they were of the type that applied to the inclusionary housing, yes. And that's for approvals. That's not for the construction of those units. Those are just simply the entitlements.
And Bill, my question is there anything that council needs to take off your plate? Because we see the shortage in planning. We see how hard you guys are working, and we don't want you to be broken. We want to keep you in one piece so you can do the work. But I feel like maybe we need to back off some of the things that we've asked you to do, because I understand the critical nature of the codes and that it's making life miserable for everybody involved, and that it'll be a lot smoother and better when it's done. So I want to be able to get it done, and I feel like we just need to take something off your plate, like put some of the affordable projects on hold, because it's just way too much.
I mean, if you want to take away the affordable housing that the city is planning on building, that is entirely up to this body.
I don't mean
But we
take it
are
away
asking-
forever, but you know what I'm saying? But to put it on the back burner.
Well, let me put it this way. The city-initiated housing is a much higher percentage of affordable housing
Yeah.
than most, if not all, of the private development.
Of course.
First and D is all affordable.
Right,
South Arc is at least 50% and likely going to be higher.
right.
Senior living apartments, if we're able to get those grants, would be entirely affordable.
Right.
Where is the priority? We are asking for you to take something off our plate.
Yeah.
They are these limited impact and major impact reviews.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one. I mean, then that is what is being asked, is a temporary 6 months, right? That's what you're asking. I had concerns about your bandwidth before it was just 2 of you. So really what this comes down to is me asking you guys how your health and general well-being is. I mean, have you seen your kids lately? Are you here till pulling 12s all the time? Like, it's the same, I feel like I'm getting echoes of the same thing that we hear from our police department, which is a lot more work with either the same or, in your case, less people. So really, I think just give it to us straight as far as human level. Like, how close to burnout are you?
My wife wanted to come tonight, and I told her no. She could have told you very much. I'm just being honest.
And she would have, where you're holding back. We know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bill, for all your work. You know, you guys are working hard, just constantly all the time for, the better of the community. Is there a way, I mean, just kind of, breaking up the weeks to maybe, a couple days, 3 days left, 3 days to, the land use code and then the rest to other business, and just kind of instead of just doing it all the time, every day, is there some kind of way we can kind of break it up a little bit more for you? We're not just constantly just killing yourselves, I guess, out there, and just kind of maybe, I'm not sure exactly if that's an option or not, but.
I think the reality of it is we've actually tried doing that to some extent by putting aside time specifically to focus on the land use code. Inevitably, though, a lot of stuff comes up in those days. I mean, that would kind of require other city staff that we work with on a daily basis not setting meetings for those days, right? Telling folks that, not to email, not to call, or not to expect any sort of responses on those days. And obviously those emails, phone calls, they pile up. And then when do you get the time to actually go to, I did an analysis. I get an average of about 60 email threads a day, over 150 emails a day. Those don't even count the ones I just toss into the trash. These are ones I need to actually read and often respond to. So a few days to focus on the land use code and not focus on emails or phone calls and everything else and come back to 300-400 emails is challenging. I think Catherine would like to say something.
Yeah, well, just to speak for myself, even with this moratorium, I'm looking at this summer, possibly 3 annexations, 2 minor subdivisions, and a major subdivision, and an HPC hearing. So that's, well, like, for me, it's not enough. The moratorium's not enough, but that's a different situation. So there's, this is a drop in the bucket. It's a drop in the bucket we need, but that's all it is on our workload, because then we have the new people coming in, and who's going to train them? And where's that time coming from? Maybe I should just have them live in my house with me. We'll just, do it at 2 a.m. when I'm just thinking about everything I should be doing, so.
Thank you. I want to apologize to you, to both of you. I feel like we've let you down. You should have more resources. You should have more staff. And I so appreciate all the work you put in, your commitment to the community, and I can see how hard this is on you. So I am sorry. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I don't think it's any one person's fault or anything else, and I don't mean to come off.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have come off pretty dramatic, and I don't mean to. We're trying to give you a very realistic picture.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with the thing, if we can take something off of your plate other than the private development, other than the risk takers coming in and wanting to develop something and keep going. Is there a way we can take some of the city stuff off of your plate? There's a lot of, like you talked about, the first and D, 19 affordable homes, but that's not shovel ready yet. That's not where you're taking applications. There's nothing where anybody's moving in there. There's no, it's all city work. What I'm saying, if that we can take some of that off your plate instead of stopping the private developers coming in, or the development, or the growth, because they're also going to provide affordable housing and what Salida's asking for. And the South Arc is maybe we can say 2 years. The infrastructure's not in. I know you've done a lot of work on that kind of stuff, 400 homes. And I know that there's other projects in the works for the city's affordable housing and units like that. I'm wondering if we can take some of that off your plate so that there can still be other growth happening. Or the work week, splitting that up so you don't have as much pressure, or when you do receive applications and such, you tell them it's going to be a longer time frame until we get, just like we talked in the retreat, slow down if there's a way to do that. And I don't know that there is. That's not what I do, so I don't know if there is.
I would say that the bulk of the work that we do is in processing applications and building permits, fielding inquiries from the public, and the extraneous work, such as working on the land use code update. First and D, we have a consultant developer who's doing the bulk of that, and so it's relatively minor, frankly. And actually, that will be coming in with an administrative review, which is one of the types of applications that's not included in the moratorium. South Arc will have a fair amount of work to it down the line once the infrastructure is implemented. And Public Works Department is going to be focusing a lot on that side of things. We'll come back into it when it comes to the entitlements along subdivisions, working with developers out there and whatnot. And then there is some work on the IGAs with the county and CMC, but not a ton right up front. So again, the bulk is really in the land use applications, the land use code. I'm missing something. Building permits, obviously. I mean, we've seen record numbers of building permits like 3 years in a row, basically.
Oh.
I mean, you know, a lot of the inquiries today and on multiple days are from these builders and are from realtors. Like, we are diligently and very quickly getting back to them and working with them to do what they need to do to determine if so-and-so should buy this lot, if their client, you know, if it works for them, and what all they can do on that lot, and what kind of permits they can apply for. And so a lot of our day-to-day work is to help the ongoing, the private sector continue what they are doing and what they are contributing, and those aspects can continue to go forward. But that is a decent chunk of time, because every inquiry is totally different than the other, and it's very time sensitive to get back with them in order so they can make these decisions in a quick manner.
Is there a reason why that should get prioritized over planned developments, for instance? Could that be walled off for a time frame, let's say 3 months, until new staff comes on and you have some time to focus on the grant funds for the land use planning? Could another staff person handle that? I'm just thinking operationally, this is kind of an operational issue and a staffing issue. So I'm just asking about other options. Could that be walled off or somebody else handles it?
But that is a lot of what goes into these land use applications. You know, we spend, I don't know, dozens of hours probably with applicants in some way, shape, or form, back and forth and everything else. I mean, maybe not always dozens, depends on the actual application, but before they even submit an application. And then that's when the big work starts. So it really has to do with the application processes themselves. And that's part of our core services, is to respond to the public with these, you know, questions and answers. So that would be very difficult, I think, if we're going to wall that off. And just going back to the notion that a 6-month temporary moratorium is going to stop growth, I'll just come back to the fact that we have 1,200 units that are out there ready to be built, or soon to be ready to be built. And that's the growth. The growth isn't in the approvals. You can get approvals all day, but there's no growth unless things are built, right? So there's lots out there. Like I said, we've been working our tails off for the last few years to help get these things through and to prioritize the housing crisis. A lot of this stuff is just out of our hands.
And just to put it in perspective, so today we got what normally would have been some phenomenal news. We heard from DOLA, we got another $2 million for infrastructure out at the South Arc, but I had a conversation with Bill earlier, and capacity issues. How do they get to all of this? And that's what they're trying to do. And so I thought that was really interesting. It's challenging. So.
Yeah, my question is, if there was a conceivable other option than an emergency ordinance, which is the most extreme thing, I mean, it's got emergency in the name, right? If there was some other way, would you be pursuing that instead?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if there was like an easy answer, and I mean, we're open to that. We've been racking our brains for months about this, and then, you know, obviously Christie's departure kind of expedited a lot of this. The unfortunate reality is you can't find planners ready to jump on board right away, especially locally with the local population that we have. It's few and far between, and folks have to come from the outside. And the housing situation as it is makes it extra challenging. And so June is the earliest that we can get the planner that we've hired on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when would
I
you?
think Christie has.
I do, and I appreciate the solution-oriented conversation. I don't think it's surprising that, in general, the organization has a hard time attracting the right people in and getting people on board and getting them trained up. It is an ongoing issue that we are constantly grappling with. How much capacity does staff have? I do want to, and I know Bill's tired of hearing me say this, but picking apart the days of the planning staff is one way of approaching this. There is some technical and legal aspects to why a moratorium is being requested, and that has to go directly to the confusion of the current land use code, implementing new policies, new zoning, new requirements that will perpetuate the confusion on developers, whether it is the city as the developer or private for-profit developers. And that is one of the key legal reasons why moratoriums are placed during land use code updates. Chavey County did it, Buena Vista did it, communities across the state do it for the mere fact that going through a process of a major update of policy and regulation to implement new policy and regulation will be extremely confusing for all involved. So I just want to add that into the conversation as well.
Right. My follow-up question was just about quality of work with all of the things that you stated that you have coming up to more things flooding through. What does that do to the quality of your work?
It has a huge impact when you're rushing to get staff reports done. You see the staff reports we create. They're 20 times the size of virtually any department, and sometimes larger. There's so much that goes in, as the developers behind me understand, there's a ton that goes into applications, a ton that go into civil plans. Well, there's a ton that goes into the reviews of all those, and a ton that goes into the communication to this body and others about those applications. And if we don't have the time, the product suffers. And we want to give you the best product we possibly can.
I want to thank you both for your time and for all that you've done. I do have a statement, and then I also have a question. So I'm concerned about the workforce housing that would be prevented by this moratorium. If people come in and want to present a plan to you guys with these next 6 months, but we have this moratorium going on, because it is just these bigger projects that would be stopped, correct? And that's where we would be getting most of our workforce housing, would be from those developments. So I am concerned about that, as well as concerned about the businesses that do rely on just the construction and just, the development in general. My question for you both, if this were to go forward, how can we hold you guys accountable so that we know in 6 months we aren't going to be needing to do another emergency ordinance to extend it? Are there any key indicators that you have? So that way, again, if this does pass, we at least can hold you guys accountable to that.
We have a schedule, excuse me, for the land use code process currently, including public meetings, work sessions with planning commission, meetings with our land use advisory committee, et cetera, and then the various review dates and potential approval dates. That said, there are always things out of our control that happen. We bring it to a public meeting, the public doesn't like this part or that part and is very clear about that. We need to go back and revise those things. And then we got to bring it back. It's an iterative process before we end up with a complete land use code. So that can extend things. There are no guarantees with this. The county thought they were going to be done sometime this past year. It didn't happen. They ended up letting go their consultant, and now they're moving towards finishing it themselves. Our best guess at this point is that we can get it done in 6 months. But if stuff comes up, I mean, I'm not going to feel guilty because we have to go through the process.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So I guess I have a question for you. So you feel like, and maybe you don't, it's not about feeling, you're saying that this is not going to limit new development?
There is, let's put it this way. We are unaware of any land use application types that are included in this moratorium that we would anticipate seeing in the next month or two. Now, there may be, don't get me wrong, there may be some out there. We have not heard from any developers about that.
But we haven't opened it up to that, for new developers to come to you before this, because this is an emergency.
My point, though, being that we often hear, especially with the bigger development types, they come talk to us about it, ask questions, give us a heads up that they're planning on coming in, even submit even portions of their application in ahead of time, even if it's not complete. We don't have any of that. We are aware of some. We're aware of some annexations. Again, that's not covered under the moratorium.
There is the case. Chandler spoke with, maybe I can explain.
Okay, Catherine has maybe one example, but it's not something that I've heard anything about in maybe over a year or more.
And then the advisory committees that you have, I know that there's some advisory committees made of various people. Can they do some of the land use code? Can you push some of that work to them so you can do the other? And is there any consultants? I know you said that Chaffey County hired some consultants to help with their code. Is that, I mean, we're doing that now. Can they do more of it and then you guys refine and instead of you doing so much of that?
We have a consultant for the land use code.
Yep.
And their job is to help us organize it, help make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. But I'll put a question back to council. Would you want random planners out of Denver coming in and rewriting our land use code? Yeah. There may be some people who say, yeah, I heard one.
I'm also on that advisory.
Okay, you
But-
are.
I mean, take it from me, I'm a massage therapist. So
Massage the numbers?
I know things as far as boots on the field and what I hear from my constituents on what they might like from the land use code, and that's what I impart onto the advisory committee, and that's also what I impart onto my constituents. But it's a lot. I will say it's a lot, and it's so delicate, it needs to be done right. You only get one shot at it, and it has to make sense.
Literally every word matters.
I just
because
don't
every
feel like
word
we
can be
should
misconstrued.
reinvent the wheel. We should tweak it to be Salida, if that's what we do. But if there's already those companies that are doing that, you have your consultants, they kind of put in what is necessary, and then the advisory committee and you guys come in, so you don't spend as much time on that, so you can keep going with your city planning. I'm just asking. I don't know.
I would just take all my questions to Bill anyway. That's how I do it already, right?
You do.
Yeah, because he went to school for this, right? And I didn't.
Massage school.
I went to massage school.
And we're the ones that use it every day. And so we need to be intimately familiar with it. And we have a lot of ownership over it because we want to be able to explain it to the public and developers as well as possible. And we want there to be as few contradictions in there as we possibly can. Right now, there are a lot of contradictions in our land use code. Right now, there are a lot of things that don't line up from page 17 to page 294. Those are the types of things that we have to really look for. And I'm not sure, I mean, the consultants can help with this, but it's ultimately, we're the ones on the ground who know it best. and know this community. And so we're going to end up doing a lot of work on it anyways. And if we don't, we're all going to pay for it.
We're paying for it now, right? With the land use code we have.
There's a lot of clunkiness to what we have currently.
I also don't want to take, I understand the land use code. It's written, it's what you guys go by. It's what the developers have to go by, or the people building their house, and everybody has to go by that. But I don't want to take the creating of this new document when there's one in place that needs to be fixed and written here at the expense of limiting growth.
Again,
I've stated it. I believe we have plenty of potential for growth given what's already been approved out there. And there's very little to nothing that would be approved in the next 6 months that you would actually see on the ground within that 6 months. Nothing gets, no units get built
These aren't questions.
Yeah,
in a few months.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we've spoken a lot. I
Yeah,
think
we
it's
have.
only fair, there's a lot of people that are here to speak, that we shift gears and go to public comment. Before I do, I only have 5 people signed up. And is there anyone out there that wants to speak? Okay, I see Ray Kitson in the back. I'm going to add you. Is there anyone else who hasn't signed up? Because once this goes, I'm not going to take comments at the end. Rob Gartzman, okay? Okay, anyone else? Okay, going, all right. So we're going to go to public comment, and first up, we have Philip Sterling.
Hey, my name's Philip, longtime listener, first-time caller. Local citizen, business owner, moved here about 8 or 9 years ago to pursue the idea that you could create a sustainable, vibrant business and live in a place that we all love so much with beauty and recreation. I first started renovating the Amigo Motor Lodge, and now a partner with Hilton Lumber, First Street Flooring, and Terra Firma Forestry. Together, those businesses employ over 30 people inside city limits, and we have a combined tenure of about 100 years in the city. I'm here to express my concern about the proposed land use application moratorium, not because it will necessarily immediately impact our bottom line of our business, but because I think it's part of a worrying trend we're seeing in our local administration. It's a trend of increasing regulatory confusion that serves to erode trust in our institutions, and this moratorium, I believe, would only exacerbate that. Businesses have enough to deal with trying to provide for our employees without having the rules of the game constantly changed and constantly changed so quickly. Never mind that in the back of their heads, we're worrying about the precedent set by the county, who also instituted what they said at the time was going to be a 6-month moratorium. It's now been about 2 years, still no resolution. That's created a lot of chaos, sidelined countless projects, and it's going to create a massive backlog of work to clear once reopened. Closure, in my opinion, is not effective management, and local businesses shouldn't be punished because the LUC rewrite was started 5 years ago and still is not done. Businesses and individuals need a clear, stable, uniformly applied regulatory environment in which to operate and make decisions. We need to feel comfortable making long-term decisions that affect our employees and involve us carrying a lot of risk, and this proposed action will not help in that regard. With all the stability and support of the administration that wants to work with us, many are going to look elsewhere. Most businesses I know are feeling a hangover from the sugar high of the last few years, and now is not the time to close the doors to the many people that earn their living through the construction industry. It's a wide-ranging industry, from engineers, architects, to retailers like myself, to contractors of all sizes. It's a heavily regulated business that relies on the city being open for business and being a partner, not an adversary. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Philip. Aaron Cook. What's that? Oh.
Hi, my name is Aaron Cook. I want to say, first off, thanks to Bill Onquist and all the staff for all the work that they do put in. The biggest thing that we're hearing, I think, is that the code needs to be simple to administer. Whatever it ends up being, however this process ends up, there needs to be a very simple yay, nay on projects that the code so that there aren't as many questions, so that there aren't as many, like, you can go straight to the code and say, hey, this is yay, nay, right? We've got areas of Salida that we love and care about. F Street is amazing. But if you have any developer come in and say, I'd like to build another F Street, oh my goodness, that would be so many public comments, so many public hearings, so many, like, even just the Palace Hotel alone, right? If someone came in and said, I want to build the Palace Hotel on a lot that's exactly the same as the Palace Hotel, exactly the same as the Palace Hotel, with the same lot coverage and everything, right? I'm not saying that that's how the code has to be, but it should be very clear yay, nay. Like, is that something we want to allow? Is it not? Make it easier for Bill and the city staff to administer the code. Right now, Chaffey, Poncha, and Chaffey County is under a moratorium. Poncha is under a de facto moratorium, and it has been for the last couple of years. Buena Vista just came out of a moratorium based on their water situation. And so even if now is maybe not the best timing overall for the county, because if Salida cuts off new applications, that cuts off the spigot everywhere in southern Chaffey County, everywhere except for Buena Vista. Essentially right now you have the high priests of zoning that people have to call and interpret the zoning code for them, right? It needs to be simple enough that the massage therapists in the room can read it and understand it, right?
That's right.
Discretion is not a feature of zoning codes. It's a bug. Some people think, oh, if we delay the process, then we're going to extract more from developers. No, make it clear. If you want so many units of affordable housing, just say it for every unit built. And then negotiations and other things like that, well, I mean, if you want to enter a negotiation, then fine. But make it simpler so that the whole process goes quicker, so that you're not overtaxing your city staff. So we're not in 10, 15 years from now having this exact same conversation for an emergency moratoria as we update the code in 2040 or 2050. The whole idea of agreement of the code, it's simpler from start to finish, the simpler and smaller the code is. That's not to say you can't have a robust code.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it. Jake Rashavi.
Thank you so much. My name is Jake Rashavi. I'm with the Chaffey County Economic Development Corporation. But I guess before I want to dive into that, I just want to say, like, on a personal level, I can empathize with Bill, and I think there are a lot of people in this room who can. And it is just so ironic that the reason why so many people work so hard in this place is because of that lack of housing. And I just want to start off this kind of comment by saying, I don't think that taking development out of the mix is the answer to that problem. But again, tonight I'm here speaking on behalf of the policy committee of the EDC. This is 8 local business owners representing some of the bigger employers in the valley. And they're deeply concerned about this type of moratorium for a couple of different reasons. But the primary being the limitation on new housing development from this type of action is only going to exacerbate the problem. These measures oftentimes limit supply while doing nothing to limit the demand. People are still going to want to live here. They're going to want to stay here. They're going to want to grow here. And that just creates further pressure on the prices that we were all grappling with here. Our members certainly empathize with the workload on the community development team here. They're short-staffed. Every single employer in our membership is short-staffed now. This is pervasive. And candidly, while they can relate, they're also unsure that this particular situation warrants an emergency action. These things have a lot of implications, some of them known and predicted, some not. Our preference would be that we take time to think through the implications of this type of move. And then further, they're unsure why the code update process, which has been underway for a long time, we don't disagree that it's important. We very much would like to see the types of simplification that have been mentioned here, but that doesn't have to happen in the next month. But a lot of the types of projects, particularly affordable housing projects that are in the pipeline, that 1,200 units, a lot of those units are 10 years off. And that does not solve the immediate problem. This type of lag in the approval process will have implications down the road. And again, context matters. You've heard a lot from this room about the other moratoria in this area. This stuff is going to play out over the next couple of years, and we're going to see it in those construction jobs that are putting food on the table. We just ask you to consider these things deeply. There is always more in terms of the impact than we can predict at the time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake.
You bet.
Francie Bomer.
Francie Bomer, 225D Street in Salida. I am speaking tonight as an individual. Good evening, Mayor and Council, staff, Bill, Catherine. I'm speaking, it may be unpopular in some circles, but I'm speaking in favor of the moratorium being proposed by the staff. We've been working very hard on the much-needed land use code for a very long time. In 2019, it was started. I was on the original committee, Citizen Committee, to start that. The pandemic hit, other slowdowns happened. We're back where we need to be. Now we're in the final stages. This is why this is so important. This isn't something that we've just started yesterday. We're in the final stages of this plan, and it's slated for, if we get everything going, slated for completion in the next 6 months. I understand the concerns about the effect on the economy, housing stock, affordable housing, but I don't believe this moratorium would have a serious negative effect on the impact of our community. It would not affect construction by right. It would not affect administrative reviews, subdivision exemptions, minor applications, or annexation requests, and it would absolutely not affect building permit applications. You may not be aware that there are many aspects of the new code that, once approved, could be very favorable to the development community. Simplification, streamlined process. One of the things that the consultant is doing is bringing everything together so it is on one place. We don't have to go from chapter 1 to chapter 8 to chapter 6. It's kind of an amazing thing. As we heard last night in the work session, there are a lot of housing units already, and you've heard it tonight, already in the pipeline, already approved. Those 1,200 units, they're not being built because of anything the city is or isn't doing. It's a slowdown in the construction process, sometimes a slowdown in the financial ability to get loans approved. Anybody that we would approve during a moratorium would have these very same problems. It would be wise, in my opinion, to hold approval of major developments under the old code, to hold it, to have the moratorium, so that going forward, most would be guided by the new code. The 6-month pause would achieve just that. It's difficult enough to understand all the nuances of a project without injecting competing versions. Managing both versions of the code at the same time creates a nightmare for our hardworking staff, Planning Commission, and you, Council. Our planning department, as you've heard, is seriously short-staffed and needs the time to focus on completing the code revisions. It should be a priority for them and for you. It's time to trust them, to support our development director and his crew. They need this time to focus on the update and the projects that they already have been approved.
Thank you. And then Greg Fillet.
To encourage you to strongly consider approving this moratorium. I think you heard the urgency in Bill's voice on the kind of the vitality of the planning department right now. I think they are on fumes, and and, you know, it came up what the quality of the work. I think they are doing a lot of things at like a C or B plus level. They want to be doing A plus work, and this will allow that to do. I think it's also important to really take into account the importance of this new code. And Francie touched on a couple of those things, that the user-friendly, it's going to be much more user-friendly, much more efficient. It's going to allow for the kind of development we've been talking about as a group for quite a while now. And I think the importance of that, to get that across the finish line, needs to really be considered. As far as kind of taking things off the plate, I just think that doesn't really make any sense. And I think with that, you're really not listening to these guys saying, we need to just concentrate on this. We need to get this across the finish line. I think you need to think of the consequences of keep continuing to push them. And if we lose more staff on this planning department without a land use code, a new land use code, the old land use code that's essentially a lame duck, and then with new staff coming in with no idea of idea of either code, what's going to happen to development then? So again, I encourage you to really consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Ray Kitson.
Rick Kitson, I'm here to speak in favor of not having a moratorium. Moratoriums are job killers. They're economy killers, they're momentum killers. This so-called emergency that's manifested since Thursday to all of a sudden we're voting on this tonight, I think is ridiculous. I've owned 20 businesses here over 45 years. Never once have I said to myself or anybody said to me, how can we slow things down at your business, Ray? What can we do to take off your plate? You know, stuff off your plate. I mean, that's not business. You know, I'm charging forward. You know, I'm not looking to turn people away. You know, nobody has ever come to me and said, or this council has never come to me and said, Ray, are you spending time with your kids and your wife and your family? Nobody gives a damn. You know, I mean, it's a job, it's work. You know, it's hard for me to even wrap myself around some of the comments here. I'll tell you what, you know, I like Bill. Bill and I are friends. I have a ton of empathy for him. But you know what the bottom line is? Bill's not the problem here. You're the problem, okay? Why don't you fund this man? You know, it's no secret that Christie was moving to the clerk. You know, that was a big loss for us, right? I'm pretty sure Christie gave at least 2 weeks notice, if not a month. When did this process start? And then you hire somebody that can't start till June. I don't even know what you guys are thinking. It makes me crazy. Not to mention, you need 3 more people here. Hire them. Fund this. You found $35 million for a fire department, which I'm in favor. I like the fire guys. You know, if you got that kind of money, spend the money. Do your job, guys. I mean, ultimately, this falls on you. It really does. The moratorium is baloney. It's a job killer. I mean, restaurants, hardware stores, lumber yards, contractors, excavators, general contractors, electricians, plumbers. You're ruining that momentum. It's already hard enough to find people in the trades to do the jobs that you need done here right now. All of a sudden, people are going to be like, well, maybe it's time to move out of this community because, you know, they're certainly not business friendly, because a 6-month moratorium turns into a 12-month, which turns into 8 months, so on and so forth. You know, people put their roots down here. You know, I have my nephew back here and his partner, development business. You know, they just started. I got a grandchild on the way. You know, they don't need to hear that we're not business friendly, that we're stifling business. This is a city council problem. Give these guys the money that they need to run the department that they need to run. It is nonsense. I mean, what are we going to do in 6 months? You know, are we going to revisit this again? We still don't have the staff. We're still not going to pay people. You know, don't even hire me. I'll be happy to do it. I'll have planners lined up out the door here. You know, if you pay them a living wage to be able to live here and make a living. You know, there's plenty of planners out there. They're stacked out there like cordwood, dying to move to a place like Salida. You got to pay them. You got to hire them. Do your job. This is not on the planning department. This is on you.
Right. And would you like me to reflect back to you? I wasn't going to. Okay, and then
For
Rob.
the record.
Rob Garsman.
For the record,
Yes.
the fire station doesn't cost $35 million. Can we strike that?
Well,
Once we start paying it back, it'll.
thanks, Rob.
Hi, guys.
Same thing.
It's hard to follow up Ray.
You started just the right
You
way.
raised your hand first.
I will say, I mean, take a look at this room here. I know almost everyone in this room, and I can tell you there are hundreds of millions of dollars invested from this community in this room, and they're all here because they're concerned. We're all part of this. We're all in the business community. We all have a lot on the line. A moratorium signals to the outsiders that we are closed for business. We're closed for business in the county. We're closed for business in Poncha and maybe in Salida. And that tells everyone that, like, hey, this isn't the place to do business because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen in the future. You never know what's going to happen if you invest $100 million here or this or try to develop this or try to do that. I mean, we're here to be open for business. Our city is based on it. Sales tax, commercial property tax, that's what funds the city. And all these people here, what fund it? And that's why they're here. That's why we're concerned. I just want you guys to keep in mind that, hey, if we say we're closed for business, then we are. Maybe it's just 6 months, but it signals to all the people who might be coming here in the future that we are. And I think we're here for business because that's what runs the city. And I appreciate all these people. I also really appreciate the planning department and everything that they do. They're bringing a lot to the table as well. But I think this would signal a much bigger shift long term. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Do we have anyone online?
No,
Okay.
we do not.
No one online. Very good. All right. Does staff have any rebuttal, any closing statement?
The only thing I guess I will highlight is something that Francie brought up, and it's the fact that the quicker we can get the land use code done, the quicker we can simplify it, and the changes that are anticipated for that will actually increase the potential for development down the line. It will streamline it. It will be able to locate density into appropriate areas in ways that you can't do currently under the current code. So I see it as walking along a path where you take a step and then you pause so that you can start running. And you ask, what can you take off the plate? If we have everything else going on our plate as we normally do, as we have on the normal trajectory, and then we have to do training as people come on board for the next several months, the obvious solution is to take the land use code update off. Unfortunately, I would not want to see that, but that is the obvious solution to me, as far as where the bulk of the work would be. But that would extend it out, who knows how long, another year, possibly more. And we've already invested, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars into the process. We're 2/3 of the way through. We have a lot of momentum right now. And I think it would be a unfortunate decision to do that, but something has to give. Thank you.
Thanks. Does council have any questions for any party or person that spoke during the hearing? Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and close the public. Oh, you did?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know that I have questions. I just kind of feel like I have something to say about
If there aren't questions, we're going to go to discussion.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing then, and that'll take us to council discussion. Why don't you start?
That's what I have, a discussion. I kind of wrote some things down to not support the emergency moratorium. I feel like Salida, with this, we're pushing on the gas pedal and we're pushing on the brake. We want to move forward with growth. We want to have these business, hundreds of millions of dollars sitting out there. I mean, I know a lot of people out there that have a lot invested in Salida and they want growth. So we cannot push on the gas and the brake at the same time. And I understand
that everybody is short-staffed. I understand pressure. I think a lot of people out there do. I am definitely in favor if there's somehow we can hire more staff, and I know it's not as easy as training, somebody to sweep the floor. That's not what I'm asking for city council. But we cannot curb growth at the expense of the housing or the development or the sales tax or the people that are looking in Salida. We can't close it. It's the same thing they said out there. We have to manage our departments better as a council, as a staff, as a city, if that's what we need to do, put some more input to help manage staff and relieve some of that pressure. And if that's what we can do up here, then I would like to do that. But I am also not in favor of the moratorium.
Thanks. Who'd like to go next? Councilmember Shelley.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak about my comments about caring if staff sees their kids. That's the kind of boss that I want to be. It's not the owner of the business and how tired that person is. Everybody knows that if you own the business, you're the most tired person, and that's on you. It's about our staff. It's about staff coming to us with their hat in their hand and going, hey, right now, general well-being is low. And if you want to be the kind of boss that cares about that, then you say so. So that's what I'm doing. What I'm doing is saying, hey, if there is a more strategic way of going about it where we focus on land use code, which solves a lot of our issues because we're using an antiquated system right now, then let's do that. It's changing direction. It's not pumping the gas or pumping the brakes and the gas at the same time. It's literally one before the other. It's land use code. And yeah, we are trying to make it clear to laymen. That's why I'm on that advisory. If I can understand it, then anybody can. That's the strategy there. So when it comes to quality of work, we're just getting presented that we're still open for business to burn out until the wheels fall off, and we're settling for a C- quality work. I mean, we've had a couple of members of planning and zoning that are very close to this issue after many hours of meeting, letting us know that this we can do a better job if we do what most communities do when they have a land use code rewrite, which is exactly this. This isn't something new to communities rewriting the code. It's about addressing, like our city administrator said, addressing confusion and not being beholden to the two codes at the same time and managing both versions. That's what this is about. And then we've had our staff also say, again, 1,200 units out there still needing to be built that are still happening. So in no way does this slow growth as much as it just, again, allows our staff to not be burnt out. Again, I mean, I definitely understand taking housing out of the mix is not the answer to the problem. I understand that there are ramifications to this that are negative. I also understand that there's negative ramifications of having burnt out staff. They walk. What happens then? Like, it wasn't our plan, or we did in our purview to realize that our community development was going to be down to essentially 2, but here we are. It happens. It happens. And what am I going to be the kind of boss that has staff that goes, hey, I'm burning out. I don't have time for any kind of life balance to go, hey, business is booming and we're just gonna, ride late stage capitalism until you literally die. I'm like, that's not, that's not the kind of boss that I wanna be. And that's not the kind of, and it's certainly not what I'm trying to put out there if we're trying to get new staff to be like, hey, we don't care how hard you work, you will be working from 9 to 9. and sing Cats in the Cradle to your kids. You know, I think it's, again, it really just comes down to that plain, we're getting a message from our staff. They're feeling burnt, or, you know, heading to burnout. What, you know, I feel like my hands are tied. What do we, you know?
Thanks. Councilmember Nacarado.
Well, I think one important option to consider is ramping up staff, and I would like to see us pursue that, and maybe we need to look to the budget and affordable housing funds, and I know that's going to take some time. So I know that's not the solution that our department is looking for. I do just want to take a minute, because I haven't already, to say thank you, Bill and Catherine, for all of your hard work. As your boss, I recognize how hard you work, and that all of that work happens before shovels hit the dirt. I see how hard Bill worked on just getting $4 million in grant funds from DOLA for infrastructure for South Arkansas. Also to our development community, thank you for those of you that came up here with solutions. One of those solutions was to simplify the land use code. And I think that's what Bill's saying he's trying to do. So if I don't vote in favor of this moratorium, it's for really one reason that stands out above all others, which we're still in moratorium with Chaffee County. So the timing is very unfortunate. I do recognize the need for the moratorium to implement the new code. And I'm sorry to say that that might have to wait until Chaffee County comes out of moratorium from where I sit, so that we can do what the developers asked and simplify the land use code. So I hope the development community can continue to be solutions oriented about this and recognize that if you continue to put pressure on, staff might walk, and then we might have the equivalent of a moratorium on your projects if we don't have staff to do it. So I do want to see us staff up and fix this problem. I don't want to agree with Ray, because you were such an asshole in the way that you said it. But
Point of order on that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But that was my feeling. That was my feeling.
Still not appropriate.
Before he said that.
Yeah.
I would like that you could speak more respectfully to us up here.
I would appreciate a little bit more notice. Okay, all right, okay, enough. Let's.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have some comments. You know, what I'd like to propose is a compromise, and that would be that we do the moratorium maybe in 6 months, once we've had an opportunity to staff up, get that staff trained. I think it's a train wreck that we can't do it now. Believe me, I'm hearing you, that this code is making a lot of extra work, and it's making it impossible for you to rewrite the code. I totally hear that. But I also hear all these other concerns, and so I just think that the timing is not optimal, that if we could put it, I mean, it looks like building season to me. If we could put it off till the Chaffee County comes out of their moratorium, and we could do it later when you've trained up your staff, I just think it would work a lot better. I think we are going to have to do it, but I think that people will be less offended by it with more notice. And, you know, they'll feel better where they have their projects with more notice. So, but we are going to have to do it. It's a question of when.
So knowing that we are in a housing crisis here, I think hearing that a delay is possible doesn't make sense to me. We don't want to delay something if we're in a crisis. So for that reason, and again, knowing that there are moratoriums that are out there that have been extended. Bill, you said yourself you're not sure if 6 months it would be enough time. That makes me worry about how much of a delay this would be. And for that reason, I would be going against this emergency ordinance. I do agree with Councilmember Nacarado that we could be looking into the budget ourselves and maybe potentially looking at ways to help support staff. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Sheep.
Yeah, I think just, you know, this time going into, you know, business is starting to pick up and start to move forward again. I think just shutting the doors, telling people that we're not open for businesses, I just can't get on with that, you know, that decision. And guys, I know that, you know, you guys are working hard and doing everything that you possibly can and more. But yeah, just telling the community or the, outside world that, we're closing down and like just the unforeseeable future of a moratorium, just seeing how they have, have been going around us now, just, not knowing if 6 months is going to be enough to get this done, and then extending that out, just something that, I'm not going to be able to, get on board with a moratorium at this point.
And I'll just make a few comments. I think this is a really good example of why we get paid the big bucks to sit up here. I mean, this is a really hard thing to have to deal with, and I really appreciate everyone being here tonight. I want to just give you a little bit of context. I've known Bill now for several years, and I have never seen or heard him this way. I mean, this is somebody that gives so much to this community and puts his heart and soul into what he does. And I can't tell you how many times he'll call me on a weekend with an idea. I mean, he's fully invested in this community. And I think it's really important for people to understand that. I'm probably not going to be voting this evening, but I will tell you that, when I came in a little over 6 years ago, one of the reasons that I ran for office was we had just seen a council who'd been in place where you saw multiple city administrators in like a 2-year period. We saw 3 finance directors, 2 community development directors. And one of my reasons for coming in is I wanted to be able to support staff. I didn't want that to happen again, because when you lose that institutional memory, I mean, there have been things that have happened the last few years that were the consequence of losing that memory. And I don't want to lose people. And I just want to make sure everyone here understands, whether you agree with Bill's comments tonight or not, he is 110% invested in this community. And I'm really, really grateful to have him with us. And we've got many other staff members like that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah. Okay. If there's no more discussion, we'll get to the part I think that everybody is here for this evening. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2024-06, an emergency ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, imposing a temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of certain land use applications and declaring an emergency.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Critelli, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. The motion is to approve ordinance 2024-06, an emergency ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, imposing a temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of certain land use applications and declaring an emergency. Further discussion?
Nacarado,
No.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Stevens,
No.
Montana,
No.
Critelli,
Yes.
Martin.
No.
The motion failed.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I know this was a hard one. Okay. That will take us to council reports. And I'm going to start tonight with Councilmember Fontana, since she is back in the building.
Okay, I took some notes here. So I'm gonna wait for a second.
Yeah. Let it get quieter.
I'm just gonna wait.
Oh, yeah.
You got a microphone, we can hear that.
That's okay, you go. Yeah.
Okay. So I've been talking to the business community downtown. This is direct reports from them. They said the snow removal response for the last several storms was fantastic. They wanted to give a shout out to David Lady and all of his crew. They said the shoveling, the plowing, the snow removal, everybody was on site, and it was the fastest they could absolutely remember. So that's a good thing. I mean, obviously they're recognizing that you guys are working hard. The Free the Monkey has changed ownership, so they're closed for a couple days. I don't know if that's new to anybody, so, what's her name? Julie. Julie's taking over. She said they will reopen, and they're very excited. Adrienne Kuhn, I don't know if you guys know, but she fell. She injured herself pretty badly, and I think she just needs our support, if anybody knows her. She had a very bad injury. The construction on the Vic is coming to a close. The new owners are out and about. I think that will be open for business soon. So as a community, I'm hoping people go and support that also. I did ask, there were a lot of people asking me about the Scout Wave, and a lot of people were very excited about it. Some people obviously had some, you can't please everybody, had some negative comments. They did ask me if, we had approved a certain amount of funding for that as council. There were people asking me if that was the same amount or if we had put more into that. So I guess I need some direction or maybe some answers on that.
In the last budget that the council approved, it was $275,000 was approved for the Scout Wave budget in the
And that's what
2024
was used,
budget.
correct?
Not even all of it, but yes,
Okay, so we didn't do more than that.
correct.
Okay, that's what they were asking me. That's perfect. That's my answer. So, and thank you to Bill and all that you do as staff. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay, thank you. And how about our newest member, Councilmember Martin?
I first want to say thank you to council for appointing me here. It's my first meeting with you guys, and it feels very special, and I feel honored to be sitting on this side of the DS. I also want to say thank you to Adam Martinez, who has been very consistent with his communication with me, and I appreciate the work he put in getting all those signatures that he included in our agenda that we saw tonight. I did go to a What's Up Salida event. There's a gentleman who asked a question about First and D apartments, if 2 of those 19 units could be for veterans. Bill, hopefully we can maybe chat about that another time. But I just want that gentleman, I can't remember, I didn't get a chance to meet him, but if he's listening, you were heard and we are asking questions. And then also the next What's Up Salida event will be April 18th. It's a Thursday at 8:30 a.m. at the Salida Community Center. Encourage everybody to come. And then last, I've been working with Donna Rhodes and Anne Marie Holland to try and organize a Ward 3 cleanup. It would be in maybe like a month or 2 from now, but just putting that on everyone's radar. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nacarado.
I just wanted to mention that watching the county commissioners meeting today to better understand county land use code planning and that moratorium and the timeline, I did learn of their proclamation declaring April 2nd through 8th, 2024 Dark Sky Week in Chaffee County. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Papenfort.
I would like for the moratorium to come back up on the agenda at an appropriate time, and to investigate additional staff for planning, so we can shore up that department.
Sure.
I would second.
Practice our reflective listening. You can let us know what you feel like an appropriate time is for the moratorium, based on your conversations or thoughts. Be happy to have that conversation with you. We conducted a salary survey, market analysis last year for all of our departments. Although, as I have mentioned before, no one in the city is getting paid what they are either worth or feel they are worth. We have increased salaries across the board for multiple years in a row. We gave special consideration to the Community Development Office, increased their salaries more than others in the organization to bring them up to a more reasonable market rate. Unfortunately, that still didn't produce what we were hoping, and Bill could speak to it. We didn't have any local qualified people apply for the planning position that was just advertised, so happy to discuss how we can bring more unqualified people into the organization, because it is something that, as the city administrator, I work on and worry about every day.
I'm sure you do.
So yes, we will continue with that, and whatever information the council would like to see regarding salaries, the total compensation benefits package that we provide our employees, we are happy to share that with you all.
And my first thought is 6 months, after the building season is over, although it's kind of year-round these days. But I don't want it to be forgotten.
My point was I would like us to dig into the budget and see how we could bring on a fourth planner in that department.
All right, lots of direction there.
And I guess just to reiterate about emergency moratoriums is that you don't get notice, or else they get hit with a deluge of stuff to get ahead of the cutoff point, right? Is that correct? About the definition of emergency?
That often happens, and that was the purpose of it being an emergency. Just to
Did
clarify.
also receive, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, to Christie's point, we have hired a senior planner. So that we recently flew 2 different positions for 2 different planners. A senior planner who accepted, unfortunately, very experienced, leaps and bounds. I think anybody on the interview committee would agree, leaps and bounds above anybody else. We were very fortunate, I think, when she comes on board. Unfortunately, due to circumstances, housing related and otherwise, she won't be able to join us until June. She is worth the wait, in my opinion. And, but we wanted to get through that process before we move forward with the other position. So we will be, hopefully, at 4 planners here sometime this summer. Whether that's
A fifth.
Yes, more than likely. If we're keeping all the rest of the stuff on our plate, that would be adequate.
Okay. Councilmember Critelli.
Yeah, I guess as a response to what we just decided, I think it just was very clear that we either chose 6 months break from one thing, or we put the land use code rewrite on the back burner. It was very clear. Being a part of the advisory committee since the beginning, and understanding just the intense amount of depth. I mean, it's basically like one notch above sifting through hieroglyphics. And yeah, literally every word counts. I think what it means to me is that yes, Salida is open for C+ business. So, I mean, like, it's keeping the flow going, but at like an average, below average, maybe something you wouldn't put on the fridge. It's like a macaroni necklace, but it's the thought that counts. So I think that needs to be a serious discussion of just putting land use code rewrite on the back burner and using the antiquated system that we have. I did want to mention that at our retreat, I think one of the themes was that during COVID, we were operating at a breakneck pace, and that there would be a concerted effort to slow things down. Maybe that's just not possible in a late-stage capitalism system that we have, where if you slow down, it means death somehow. But I do want to say that when police tell us that they are understaffed and that their call volumes are through the roof, we say, hey, well, we're not going to hold you to enforcing timed parking or dogs in our parks. So I think in the same vein, again, just coming back to land use code, that needs to just be on pause, unfortunately, but it just is what it is. Another thing, I've just, after attending the Chaffey County Youth Alliance meeting, There is an ordinance coming up soon. I want everybody, I think I got this to everybody except for you, Elisa, because you weren't at the retreat, but just about underage party hosts, namely some, I don't know, short-term rental are being used for that. Another thing to add to the immense call volume on our understaffed police department. So I have this copy for you, Councilmember Papenfour, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stevens.
No, I don't have any reports.
Okay. And I just had a few things tonight. First off, I went to coffee with the cops this morning, and I would really encourage, if you can make it in the future, whether you're on council or if you're a member of the public, it's a great way to get to know our officers, and I thought it was really, really good to be there with them today. So just wanted to encourage that. That's the first. Secondly, I wanted to address, there was a letter to the editor, and there's been some comments pertaining to council dinners. And I want to make sure that people know those are all noticed, and anyone that would like to come and monitor, please feel free. We meet in the tenderfoot room, typically between 5 and 6, before work sessions, before council meetings. And I would just say that sometimes a dinner is just a dinner. And I think it's important to recognize we have many people that are sitting up here that work full days. They don't have time to go home and eat. I mean, here it is 8:20, and you don't want us making decisions when we're really hangry. But please feel free to come, and if you want to monitor, it probably won't be the most exciting thing you ever do, but if it gives you peace of mind, we would really like you to be there. So that was the second thing I wanted to mention. The third is a shout out to our planning department. I mean, this has to feel like a gut punch tonight, and I'm so sorry for that. I know how hard you work and your commitment to this community, let me know if there's anything that I can do to support you. I think you've heard some stuff tonight, but I really do feel for you, and I just wanted to make sure that you know that. And then the final thing is we did get a $2 million grant today from DOLA for infrastructure at the South Arc, and that is directly attributable to the work the planning department did. They are such an invaluable cog in our machine, and they're just trying to do what they think is best for the community, and I'm so grateful to have you with us. And that's all that I have tonight. Thank you. And then we have treasurer report.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, attorney report.
Hi, I have a couple things for you guys tonight. The first one is I wanted to give you guys an update, or I guess more the public an update on the Hobbs v. Salida and Highside case that came to the city. Just as a little bit of background, that case started back in 2022 when Mr. Hobbs decided to sue the city and Highside Bar and Grill for the elevated noise permits, much like the one that we heard tonight. He based that case off of deciding or arguing that Salida's municipal code violated the state statute with regard to noise and what decibel levels are permitted at different times and in different places. That case was brought in front of the district court here in Chaffey County in 2023. It was dismissed based off of the court finding that there was not a sufficient claim. Mr. Hobbs then decided to appeal that decision to the Court of Appeals, which started again in early 2023. Our office was able to participate in that, and we briefed our side of the issue to the court. I think we submitted that in June of 2023, and we just recently, at the beginning of March, got a final decision from the Court of Appeals, and that decision is part of the packet. But basically what the court found was they agreed with both the city and Highside Bar and Grill that under the statute, there is an exemption, and the permits that the city issues as part of the city code fall within that exemption. And so they found for us What happens now, because it's the Court of Appeals, the way that cases go through appeals processes is the Court of Appeals has to hear every case that comes before them. If someone disagrees with the decision of the Court of Appeals, they can file a petition for certiorari to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can choose to hear that case or not. Mr. Hobbs has 42 days from the date of that decision to file his petition for cert. I did the math today. That gives him until April 18th. So he still has a little bit of time to decide whether or not he's going to file a petition with the Supreme Court. I haven't heard anything either way. And again, even if he files a petition, we have no idea whether or not the Supreme Court would grant that petition. The one other update with regard to that is that Colorado Springs, well, I guess to take a step back, this case was a case of first impression in front of the Court of Appeals, which means that it was the first time this issue has been litigated in an appeals court. So that's a pretty big victory for us that we were able to win this on the merits of just the law itself. Colorado Springs is currently briefing this issue, the same issue, to the Court of Appeals right now. The only reason I bring that up is it may or may not impact whether or not the Supreme Court would choose to hear this case. If Mr. Hobbs were to file a petition for certiorari, again, it might be more dependent on what happens in Colorado Springs and their Court of Appeals case, because a lot of times the Supreme Court will choose what cases to hear if there's maybe a split in the Court of Appeals, or just to give more clarity and more finality to a decision. But that's the update on the Hobbs case. The other thing I wanted to give you guys an update on is, since we've got new council members, as many of you know, there is currently a nuisance property within the city that's been a problem for quite some time. And it was brought to the council's attention, I think last year sometime, about how the municipal court maybe wasn't the best place to be dealing with that nuisance problem. And so under the direction of the council, we have since filed a district court case to try and resolve this nuisance problem. And we're still in the middle of that litigation. And so I can't go into a ton of details on what's going on with it because it's still pending. But I did want to let the council know that we are working on it. We're aware of it. We've also heard a lot of the community concern regarding this property. And so we're trying to work through it. But because it's in the court system, it's just a slower process than any of us would really like. But just so you're aware, we're aware of it and we're working on it. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Anything from staff?
Yes, two very quick things, please. I want to thank all of you, council members, our treasurer, our department heads, for spending an entire day together on Friday. I know that you all gave up something else that you were planning to do, and so I really appreciate it. And I think that through those discussions, it helps us all work better together. So I thank you. And I also wanted to let the council know that we did submit a letter of support for Places to Age for a grant for the congressionally directed spending. We were one of many letters of support for infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So we now have an executive session. So we're going to need to, I'll need a motion to go into executive session.
Would you like to provide said motion?
Well, so.
Look upon?
So someone can make the motion right there. Oh, sorry. You don't
You're
have
good.
it. Yeah.
I'm gonna eagle eyes.
The last one.
Mr. Mayor, I move to move into executive session where we will receive legal advice regarding, like that? Just read
Yeah,
it?
that-
Okay.
yeah, we just
Legal,
read
legal advice regarding lawsuit brought by the town of Poncha Springs, Talon Group LLC, and Full Views Matter LLC against the city of Salida and related negotiations, discussions, and next steps.
Second. So we have a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Critelli. And the motion is to go into executive session for the purpose of conferencing with the city attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under CRS Section 24-6, 402, 4B, and for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators under CRS Section 24-6, 402, 4E. And the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. Legal advice regarding lawsuit brought by the town of Poncha Springs, Tailwind Group LLC, and Full Views Matter LLC against the city of Salida, and related negotiations, discussions, and next steps. Further discussion? Christie?
Fontana,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Peppenfort,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
After we
Yeah,
come
no
back.
worries.
Well, once we start. Are we good to go, or do we? I'll wait for Christie.
Nina is going to.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, might as well take a moment.
Councilmember Nacarado called Ray an asshole. It's just everything.
Unless it's the perfect.
Oh, I know. But oh, man.
But I didn't do it with passion.
I will remember.
Nina got signed
I will
in.
remember that. That will be a highlight for me.
I know.
Right there.
What's that?
It's just Dominique calling Ray an ass.
I mean.
session and return to the open meeting.
Act like we never left.
I feel like.
All right. Okay, are we back on?
Yes.
Okay. The time is now 9:30. And the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Justin Critelli, Suzanne Fontana, Aaron Stevens, Dan Shore, Wales Martin, Dominique Nacarado, Elisa Pappenfort, Christy Dune, Nina Williams, Erica Romberg, and, David Lady. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next agenda item is a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
You never check to see if anybody's not in favor.
All opposed?
I'm pretty sure Levine put that stuff on his own car.
Oh, really?
I would really like
I'll be sure to.